You can film any cinematic video at all with your smartphone. All you just need are the right settings, the right knowledge, the right equipment, and you're good to go. In this video, I'm going to show you what you need to know to film cinematic videos using your phone. Let's get right into it.
My elder brother, I spoke to my friends, I spoke to Manuel the poet. And Manuel the poet introduced me to his friend, Buchi, who had a Bible study group at the time. Buchi was my accountability partner, and Buchi introduced me to SLC.
Before now, phones had just one camera. Nowadays, phones have 3 cameras. Or do they? No. Actually, phones do not have 3 cameras. Phones still have 1 camera, but multiple lenses. Some phones have 2 lenses, some have 3, some have 4 lenses. Okay, but it's still 1 camera. But why is it so? You see, before now, if you wanted to take a picture, all you had on your phone was 1 camera and 1 lens. So if you wanted to take a wide shot, you use the camera. To capture a close-up shot, you zoom in with that same lens that you use to capture a wide shot. The problem with that is the more you zoom in, the more pixelated the image gets, because you're basically just forcing a wide lens to give you a close-up picture, which is actually not good. So phone manufacturers decided to do one better. Led by Apple, they decided to increase the number of lenses on the phones, so that what you now have are dedicated lenses for specific shots and specific purposes. Let's say if you're using an iPhone, for example, you have 3 lenses. You have a lens that takes an ultra-wide shot, you have a lens that takes a close-up shot, and then you have a lens that takes macro shots, which is the portrait and extreme close-up shots. And what that means is, if you're taking a wide shot, the camera uses the ultra-wide lens. The moment you zoom in the picture to take a close-up shot or a closer shot than the wide shot, the camera does not use the same wide lens or the same ultra-wide lens. It switches to the next lens that is specifically for that purpose. And then it takes the picture or takes the video. Then when you want to take an extreme close-up shot, if you push the shot in again, the lens switches to the macro lens that takes a closer macro shot. That's essentially how the camera works. Now, what this has done is it has improved greatly the quality of pictures that phones produce and the quality of videos that phones produce, because right now you're not really stressing any of the lenses to do what they are not meant to do. Each lens does what it is dedicated to do using the software in the camera to work. But having 3 lenses on your phone or having multiple lenses, even if you have 10 lenses, does not actually guarantee good quality if you do not know how to use your phone rightly. To use your phone effectively, you have to understand a couple of things. Primary among the things you have to understand is this. Because of the size of the sensor of the camera of your phone requires a lot more light than conventional cameras will require. The sensor in the camera is what receives the light that enters the camera. Now, I'm going to do a video where I will explain how a camera works, where I'm going to break this down a lot more. But for this video, the sensor in the camera is what receives the light. And of course, the light is basically the information that the camera is getting. Light is what the camera interprets into an image. So the sensor is what determines the light that enters into the camera that is later processed into an image. So the larger the sensor, the better the quality of the image. So because of the size of your phone, it has small sensors. That is the reason why if you're taking a picture under the sun with an iPhone, you look like you could marry yourself, because there's a lot of light. Now, when you take that same phone inside, you're not really getting so much. So you have to understand, first of all, that you need good lighting. That's the first lesson. Without good lighting, forget about it. When I shot this video, for example, it was a practical for some of my students, my trainees, and we shot it in my living room because it was a public holiday, I guess, and we couldn't go to I didn't want to go to the studio, so I had them come over. The first thing we did was I blocked all the external lights because I wanted to teach them how to use their light, how to harness their own light to achieve what they want before going into natural lighting and whatnot. So primarily, we had to shut out as much of the external light as possible. We couldn't shut everything out. We didn't shut everything out, but we shut out as much as possible. And we created our own lighting. So we used a key light, we used a backlight, then we used a practical light. We positioned the key light a little to the right of the camera at a 45-degree angle, then the backlight directly behind the subject, as opposed to having it come from up I had it directly behind the subject because I knew he was not going to be doing a lot of movement that would reveal the light, just like I have my backlight directly behind me in this video. Yeah, so that was exactly what we did to create a separation between the subject and the background. Then we added the practical light in the bookshelf and then added some other stuff in the background. We'll get into all of these other things that we added, but for the lighting, that is how we achieved the lighting. When we were done, the next thing, which is also very important, is this. Do not use the default camera app of your phone. Use a third-party camera app. And the reason is because, especially if you're a filmmaker or an aspiring filmmaker, and you hope to one day upskill from using your mobile phone to using a professional camera, what a third-party camera app gives you is that professional camera feel. So you're using your phone, but you have all of the dials and settings that most professional cameras will have that you can work with, like your ISO, aperture, shutter speed, your peaking, focus peaking, of course, zebra lines, all of that. You have it in third-party camera apps. Now, there are certain phones that have pro mode, like Samsung, Google Pixel, and Sony, that have pro modes that are as effective as some of these professional cameras, but I'll still suggest that you use professional third-party camera apps like Blackmagic, ProShot, and there is also ProMovie. Now, any of these apps will work very fine for you. So for this video, I used the Blackmagic camera app. So after setting my light, I set my white balance, set my ISO, my aperture, did all of the settings in the camera. Now, when I was done with all of that, we're good to go on that end. So we've talked about lighting, we've talked about using a third-party camera app. The next thing you must understand if you're going to use your phone to film is composition. This point, you cannot escape it. Composing your shot properly is what is going to make it cinematic, whether you're using a camera or you're using a phone. And then what is composition? It is basically the arrangement of things within your frame. It is not just having things in the frame, but how you arrange and place those things in the frame to appeal to the viewer. That's what composition is. Now, for this, for example, I don't have a bookshelf in my living room. My bookshelf is in my study, but we moved it from my study to the living room because that's where we wanted to film. And then when I looked at it, it wasn't really what I wanted just yet. I still needed more. So we moved the table to the side of my TV console and I placed some other things on the table to still add more depth and detail to the scene. By the time we filmed, even though the other things I added were not so obvious in the shot, it still added that detail and depth to the shot. Now, if we had not added all of these things and we just filmed using just the background, it would have been a lot more flat and bland. But having all of these things in the frame added some more depth and detail. So if you want to use your phone, always ensure that you have good composition. Have things in the foreground and in the background if possible. And a final tip I'm going to give you is this, because I get this question a lot on my social media. A lot of persons asking me, how do I blur the background in my videos if I'm using my phone and whatnot? The secret to blurring the background if you're using your phone or even if you're using a camera is understanding depth of field. Now, I'm going to make a detailed video about how depth of field works. But basically, depth of field is affected by two factors. It is affected by the aperture and affected by distance. Aperture, of course, is the opening in the lens that allows in light. If it is open very wide, a lot of light comes in. And when a lot of light comes in, the camera is able to create proper separation between the subject and the foreground and background. But if little light is coming into the camera, it does not create that separation. That's the simple explanation of it. Yeah. That's for aperture. Now, distance. You have to create a considerable distance between your subject and the background. You do not put yourself directly in front of a background and expect that you're going to have depth of field. Now, if you're using your phone, you would have to even move even farther than when you're using a camera, especially if you're using a cinema lens on your camera that has an aperture of 1.5 or whatnot. You of course cannot compare the both. Right? So if you're using a camera that has a wide aperture, you have better depth of field than when you're using a phone. So if you're using your phone, you have to create as much distance between your subject and the background as possible. That enables your camera to recognize your subject and separate it better from the background, thereby blurring the background and keeping your subject in focus. It is actually very easy, not really so complex. Okay? So if you do these things, you'll be able to achieve high quality videos using your phone. Perhaps I'm going to make detailed videos about each of these points, third-party camera apps and all of these later on so that you can better grasp it. But for now, if you follow these rules, you'll be able to maximize your phone effectively to film professional and cinematic videos. All right? That'll be all for this video. Until the next video, don't forget to continue to learn, create, until you become.